Welcome, everybody, to Homeless in San Diego. I am Greg Angel, our host, and I serve as the CEO at Interfaith Community Services, joined today by one of our remarkable volunteers, dedicated volunteers, David Fitzgibbons. David, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Greg. It's an honor to be part of this podcast.
I think you said it's your first podcast, right?
Oh, it's the first. I'm a little nervous, but we'll get through it.
We had the late Padres owner, Peter Seidler, on a few years ago, and he said it was his first podcast, which was hard to believe.
Right?
He owns a baseball team.
Wow.
So you're in esteemed company.
Well, that is quite company. Yeah.
David, you joined Interfaith as a volunteer right at the start of COVID.
Yeah. It was January, and then I was going through training, and then COVID hit. And, I stayed home for a few months, and then I got the courage to come back. And that was quite the time, with Interfaith staff being out, we were working outside.
We had to move the whole operation from inside to outdoors.
And
we had huge increase in numbers of people coming who needed food and just basic needs assistance.
Yeah, there were lines out to the street, with cars, and the staff was incredible, and the volunteers, well, they were limited, but they were dedicated.
Yeah, and
didn't miss a beat.
Well, you really embody that spirit that our volunteers have. David, why, this show is called Homeless in San Diego. We usually feature and invite people who have experienced homelessness themselves to share their experience. You serve and work as a volunteer helping people in similar situations of homelessness and housing instability. But for our listeners, why did you want to come on the show, and what do you want to share today?
Well, I came to San Diego in 1974. I hitchhiked here. I didn't have a place to stay. At night I had relatives, and I arrived downtown San Diego, put my bags at the Greyhound station, and I was walking the streets of San Diego and walked by the San Diego Rescue Mission.
Yeah.
And there was the same St. James Hotel back then, the SROs, single occupancy hotels. And I think it was $16 a week or something back then. And I had $26 in my pocket. And, I called my aunt and uncle who lived over in Ocean Beach, Point Loma area, and they took me in. I had only seen them one time in my life.
Really?
And they helped me go through college at San Diego State. And so I felt and when I was growing up in New York, I did not have the best home life, and I was not the best student, and I ended up sleeping sometimes on the Staten Island Ferry, benches in the park, stoops, and back of cars, couch surfing, intermittently, and so I knew what it felt like. And after, I'm 70 years old, so I got here when I was 20. 50 years later, I started volunteering about 4 years ago, so 46 years later, I thought that, maybe I can give something back to the community.
You retired from a career in insurance.
That's right.
And you were retired a few years before you joined Interfaith as a volunteer. What made you want to volunteer and be a part of what we do at Interfaith Community Services?
Well, I rode my bike a lot, when I first volunteered, refereed some basketball, and then my wife started volunteering for Voices for Children, and I started to rethink what I was doing, and I would read about Interfaith in the San Diego Union and what they were doing, and one of the things that, because I don't attend church or anything, I didn't think I could get in, but I had a friend that worked here, and he arranged for me to get an interview, and it turned out it was the best thing that's happened to my retirement in the last 4 years of volunteering, helping people with their basic needs, food, give them information on shelter, clothing.
So share with our listeners what you do as a volunteer. We haven't actually described the volunteer job and what that role is and what you do. And you come in 2 times a week. You're volunteering Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, right?
Right.
So what are you doing as a volunteer those mornings?
Well, those mornings, today what we do is we address the basic needs on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Someone needs some clothing, we see what we have, we help them with clothing.
And this is here in Escondido, people walking in for services.
They're walking in, and some are driving in, some are living in their cars.
No appointments, so these are open hours that we have.
Right.
Individuals can come in.
Yeah, and so, food, hygiene, and then if a higher level touch is required, we'll ask them to come back on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, or see the case manager of the day if it's an urgent issue, for them to get the assistance that they need.
Is there a personal example or story of someone who you've worked with recently, or the types of services that you've been able to provide initially and then leading to those higher touch services that you can share for our listeners?
Well, you'd be helping someone with food that's been homeless, and then several months later, they come back, and they got into the shelter, and they're now situated in some permanent housing, and they say, gee, they would say, hey, Interfaith helped me, and my life is so much better now. I'm employed at Camp Pendleton as a bus driver. There's one gentleman recently, and I got to know him because he would ride his bike and pick up his food and so forth, and ride back, and I would kind of caution him about a helmet. Eventually he had one, but he came back one day and said, hey, I'm loving it. I work at Camp Pendleton. I'm getting paid well, and his life is heading in the right direction.
Most people are surprised to know that half of the residents in our Haven House emergency shelter, that half of them have income, and their average income is about $1,000 a month. Yeah. So most individuals are not with zero funds. They simply, or not simply, they just are not able to afford housing with the money that they do have.
And we see that with people that are disabled, and we see it with the seniors. Their Social Security, doesn't go that far for a lot, for anyone, not in California. And they come looking for rental assistance, food, and for the unfortunate ones, they end up living in their car. They may not have family nearby. Trying to think of an individual. Well, I see people on a regular basis, but they're just trying to get by. And then you run into the people that have worked a lot of years, construction workers, tradespeople, and they've been injured. Your body can only go so far. Pro football players go a decade, whatever it is. Well, these guys maybe go 25 years or 30 and they break down, but they don't have that big financial cushion to fall back on.
Yeah.
And again, Social Security takes a while to be processed for disability. It's a long process, and so in the meantime, they're living in their cars. And I see a few of them every week.
When thinking about your own experience, coming to town with $26 in your pocket, without a place to stay,
right?
And your aunt and uncle helped you out, gave you a hand. When you needed one. So many people, their families are in the same situation.
Yeah.
When they're in crisis.
Yeah.
When they're losing their housing, when they've already lost their housing and they're living in their car. And for those who don't have family or others to turn to, where are they going to go and what are they going to do?
Right. And again, I feel very fortunate. I could have easily fell through the net, but I didn't because of, an aunt and uncle that were just really remarkable. In fact, my wife and I were able to contribute to Turk Center and, have a room in their honor. And so that was, my way of remembering them.
Well, that's really
our
wonderful.
way. I mean, it's, yeah.
Thank you for honoring them and remembering them at the Turk Center. For our listeners, that's our new 106-bed recuperative care center for
Right.
people coming out of hospitals or with other health challenges or mental health challenges even, who are homeless and need a place to address both the homelessness and the health issues. And that center's been open for almost a year now,
Yeah.
and providing just life-saving care for people who otherwise would have nowhere to go and would be dying on our streets.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's much needed. I think the county is pushing another initiative of another recuperative care center, I think. I think I read that in the paper. And there's a lot of resources needed.
Yeah, county staff were actually out at our new Turk Recuperative Care Center last week.
Oh.
The county was a big part of helping create the center. They provided a total investment of about $9 million. So that's taxpayer dollars to help with the purchase of what was a blighted hotel here in Escondido. And then supporters like you, David, and your wife and others helped pay for the renovations. And we, as you know, completely rebuilt this blighted motel into a real first-class residential care facility. And now the 24/7 operations, because our residents there, who again are coming out of hospitalization and are dealing with physical wounds, medical conditions, mental health crises, our residents there are supported 24/7 by nursing staff, by mental health clinicians, by resident behavioral health aides, and the cost of that is all covered by our partners in healthcare, by our partnerships with our local hospitals, who would much rather be able to send somebody into our care than to have to discharge them to the streets. For lots of reasons, they don't want to do that. And also by the health insurance plans, who don't want to have to pay the readmit bills for those individuals ending back in the emergency room. So it's a really strong program that you've been a part of creating, and like you said, the county and others are looking at creating more places like that to provide healing and help.
No, the taxpayers save money in the long run, because the hospital stays and readmissions, it's very costly, and the human cost.
So you know Interfaith very well. You volunteer. You're with us 2 days a week, giving of your time to meet with individuals and families and households coming through our walk-in services for basic support. You shared a little bit about the services you provide and the types of challenges that people are bringing. You also shared, though, about your financial support, the donations that you've made to support our work. What gives you confidence that those are well used, and why do you support our organization in that way?
Well, I see the results. I think I overheard somebody quote you, Greg. Not everybody's on a straight line. Their recovery, and but we get families off the street with the new family center east of here, and then I do see the results. I do see people that are employed, they're contributing again, and of course, you have individuals that have been, they're in a bad situation, but they're housed, and they're doing the best they can. You also have a detox facility and rehab facility at Interfaith. So Interfaith does address the whole problem. It's, if you have an alcohol or drug issue, we can help. If you need housing, we can help. If you're coming out of the hospital and you're not going to recover on the streets, and where are you going to go? And so Interfaith, with that fine facility, helps with that need. The need is great, and it, unfortunately, the frustration I think people have is they want immediate results. The problem's immense. It's going to take time to, and I think our governor has done the best he can. We just got Prop 1 passed by the narrowest of margins, but you got to have the infrastructure. It's mental health crisis, and it's people need beds to get stable, and it's we got to take care of the whole thing and it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while.
A lot of people often don't realize that there are not beds available.
There's not.
So as wonderful as the resources are that you described that Interfaith provides, they all operate at capacity. The recuperative care center that we operate, that we've talked a lot about here today, it's full.
Yeah.
And so for it just opened last year, and so we've been building up that capacity. And unfortunately, we're now in a place where we're not able to accept everybody who is seeking that help because it's full. The treatment programs are full, the detoxes are full, the shelters are full. So you're right, when community members who are frustrated with increases in what I would be specific are visible homelessness, encampments and individuals who appear to have been homeless for long periods of time. So visible homelessness, when people get upset about that, you're right. That's been a problem that has not popped up overnight. It has built over many, many years. And unfortunately, there's a lot of, one of the ways that the frustration manifests is in policies to push people who are unsheltered out of the places that they're at, which can help that neighborhood. You can push all the people who are in that neighborhood out. That neighborhood suddenly has less people, but those individuals are now in a much worse place. They may have lost what limited belongings they had. They may have been traumatized when one of those belongings was a family family item, a cherished memory of their childhood.
Right.
It's now gone. Any number of scenarios, right? And so often well-intentioned policies and decisions to reduce visible street homelessness, in fact, end up making it worse.
It does. And, they end up in another area that they're not familiar with. And you got to deal with the problem. I mean, that's the bottom line. And it's costly, and it's going to take time to build the infrastructure. If somebody's having a mental health crisis, you take them to the ER is packed. And there may not be a mental health bed available for them. They're sitting in the ER for several days, and sometimes they just make a call and say, well, you're stable enough, and there you go.
I think it's an appropriate analogy, though, if we think about it. If there was a situation where lots of people were breaking their arm and were going to the hospital, and the hospital said, sorry, can't help you. Too many broken arms today.
Yeah.
Come back another time.
Right.
People would be in uproar. I broke my arm. I can't even get help from a doctor. Right. That same level of uproar doesn't exist in as productive a way when it comes to homelessness. And there's a lot of back and forth. Well, no, it's the individual's fault. They chose to break their arm. If they hadn't done this, they wouldn't have the broken arm.
Yeah.
And we all know, doing the work firsthand, from your own experience, I think our listeners know from their own experiences, that our own actions absolutely lead to exposure to homelessness and likelihood to lose housing. But many of us, I share a similar experience with you, that when I had challenging times, I had family who was there to support me. Not everyone has that.
No.
And unfortunately, that level of, okay, there are too many people on our streets, there are too many people experiencing homelessness, we need to do something about it. There's not yet enough agreement on what that something is.
And you're right. There's not enough, not only agreement, but it just takes time to fund and build the infrastructure and get the trained people, mental health professionals, and I think we're heading in the right direction. It's not hopeless, I think we just got to stay the course.
I think in some ways we're headed in the right direction. I think in other ways we're going to see the problem get worse. Unfortunately, the continued increase in housing costs, and the impact that has on seniors and others on fixed incomes, individuals who are disabled, that's you see it through the volunteer work. That creates more homelessness, and unfortunately, I believe that's only going to increase.
Yeah, and since you've said that, and I reflect on that, people don't have pensions like they used to years ago.
Sure.
And so Social Security ends up being the primary source of income for our seniors. And like today, my wife went and got tires for a car. It's $1,000. It's like
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, and we're fortunate that we've had great careers, and we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm on $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month, and I got to pay rent, and my car needs 4 tires, and even if I buy retreads, it's still several $100s. And it's huge. It's huge. Our social system is not geared for that.
And the housing problems are so immense, especially here in this very expensive community. And so our senior teams, our teams who work with seniors, that's their focus. Some of our teams, that's their focus. They used to work almost exclusively in what we called aging in place. And so it was, how can we help you be safe in your home? Right. We'll install a grab bar. We'll help fix that light fixture that you can't reach. We'll make sure that you have a safety plan if you fall and you need somebody to come and get you, that you have a way to call for help. That was the focus of that team. Those problems are frankly quaint for us at this point. Now it's, I've lost my housing. I'm living in my car. Yeah. It's the apartment I've lived in for 15 years is being redeveloped, and I have to go find a new place to rent. I'm shocked. I have sticker shock. I can't believe how expensive rents are, and there's no way I can afford it. I'm on Social Security, and not only am I afraid I can't afford it, I can't find a landlord who will actually rent to me.
Right.
And I have to move out at the end of the week. These are the situations we're dealing with that don't have easy solutions because these are systemic problems. But there are things that are making huge impacts in other ways, and you're a part of one of those. We're launching a campaign to end family homelessness here in our community. And we're not pretending or purporting to be able to do this right away, to your point, but instead to do that one family at a time. And we have our new family shelter, which opened last fall, which has been successful in very short order in helping families stabilize, heads of household, parents get jobs, support for the kids, and then helping them get it out of the shelter and into a home of their own. We're seeing very rapid success there in that brand new resource that just last year didn't exist. We're also going a step further, though, to directly connect our supporters with the experiences of those families so that they can understand what they're going through and they can help with monetary contributions to support them. And we really believe that one family at a time, we can work our way towards ending that type of homelessness, which is often an invisible homelessness.
Well, and it also breaks the cycle, is what it's. If the kids grow up in a stable environment, they're not going from place to place, staying with this relative or this family or in the car. They can get an education, they have a shot. And so the next generation has a shot at not being in that position. And see, it's just not today, it's for tomorrow too.
Well, David, thank you for supporting our One campaign, which is seeking to end family homelessness one family at a time. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on our show today and share your experiences as a volunteer, your life experience, your perspective on homelessness. What else did you want to share that we haven't had a chance to touch on today?
Well, is it point in time when we go out and we count the homeless? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the point in time count. And you helped out this year, 4 a.m.
It's
last Friday in January.
The second year that I've done it.
Yeah.
And, you go out there and you see people, it's before the sun comes up.
Yeah.
And so they're in the parking lots, they're living in their cars, RVs, in front of an establishment. It's cold.
Yeah.
And and it's and we encounter them, we talk to them, and nice. I mean, people are very receptive, and they're grateful that we're out there trying to connect them to resources at the same time, saying, hey, we're from Interfaith. Do you know where we are? And do you mind if we take a few minutes to do a survey? And for the most part, to a person, they're very grateful that you're out there. And so I think it gives them hope. And again, I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to be affiliated with Interfaith. And I'll add one more thing: is the volunteers that I work alongside with are just tremendous. I mean, we've got a gentleman who he's American Airlines airline captain, and on his days off, he tries to work his schedule to be there every Tuesday and Thursday to work in the pantry. I mean, he's got a family, and he's a busy guy, but he makes time to be there to help. And he makes sure that when he's putting together a package of food for somebody, that they have what they need. And I've seen him run across the parking lot when he's forgot something, chasing somebody down. And they're retired newspaper editor, teachers, social workers. These people, they know what we need to do. And I think when you're up with it and you see it, your perspective changes. It's the fact that it's not like, well, I'm a self-made person, and it's not everybody has the same roll of the dice, the same luck, DNA, all of that. It's a crapshoot, and and so anyway.
And nobody, speaking of, thinking about DNA and how we all are who we are by chance, nobody in that kindergarten class, when they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Nobody says, I want to be homeless.
No.
I can't wait to be living off general relief and trying to make it by off of CalFresh. Like, nobody says that, right?
No, and the other thing is they were somebody's child at some time. They had a lot of promise at one time. And, life happens, and it's not fair. Some of us get, we pull a bad card over and over. And others, we get a few bad cards and we get a few aces, and our lives go on. But not everybody's that fortunate.
One of the things I love about Interfaith is that we get the opportunity, the honor, to work with people throughout their lives.
Yeah.
And so our family program, like you said, is about breaking that cycle.
Yeah.
And it's about, because most people who have experienced homelessness first experienced homelessness as a young kid or a young adult. So it's about intervening early. At the Recuperative Care Center that we were talking about, the Turk Center, though, we've provided regularly hospice care. The other end of that, when somebody is homeless and is at the end of their life, and for us to have the honor to be able to support them through that and to help them be comfortable and surrounded by people who care for them, it's a very meaningful thing.
And that is, and I have not thought about that. Thank you for bringing that up, Greg. Just how, the Turk Center, just how valuable it is.
Well, thank you for being a huge part of our work, David. We always have a call to action on this show. So our listeners, our viewers, they've taken the time out of their busy schedule to listen and hear, and they've stuck with us to this point. So now they're ready. They're like, okay, what else can I do? What's your call to action? What do you recommend people consider?
Well, I think, for those that are working and that can, consider, donating their treasure to organizations like Interfaith. and for retirees that can, hey, offer your time. You know, for me, it's been a godsend from the standpoint that there again, whatever problems I may have that day when I walk in, I go home. They're very manageable.
Yeah.
It's been therapeutic for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing those. For our listeners and viewers, we'll put links to where you can donate treasure, monetary resources to support our work, in-kind donations, the food,
Right,
the hygiene, the clothing. We're moving hundreds of households out of homelessness into housing every year. We have an amazing, what we call it, a Make It a Home program, where donors can provide the plates and the household furniture and the utensils and the things that somebody needs to make that new empty apartment a home. And then also volunteer links for individuals can volunteer throughout our locations in North County. David, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being a part of it. To our listeners, thank you for being a part of our movement, of our work together to help each other in our time of need and to create a better world. We will see and be with you all in the near future. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, David.
Thank you.